today, well, actually yesterday, after coming off air, I started looking at it in a little bit more detail, and I'm not sure it's a very big deal. 12 minutes after 10 is the time. For these reasons, right? Manufacturers were told yesterday by the government that by 2030, 80% of all the vehicles they need to sell will have to be electric, right? That's 80%. The big brouhaha politically is that it won't be 100%, but it will be 100% by 2035. So what we have is a 5-year pause on the last 20% of new car sales. In fact, if they don't sell a certain percentage of electric cars from their overall roster, they will actually be fined. There are going to be fines in place. So if you're a motor manufacturer and the percentage of cars that you sell that are electric doesn't hit, I think it's 22% next year, and then it rises incrementally until 2030, you're actually going to be fined. So the punishments are in place. All they seem to have done is delay the point at which that final 20% will be removed from the forecourts, as it were. And if I was a manufacturer, I don't think I'd change my plans according to what Rishi Sunak has announced. If I was changing my production lines to accommodate the fact that we're going to have to be all electric by 2030, and we're still going to have to be 80% electric by 2030, I don't know that I'd leave the petrol production line running. And the cars that I imagine are going to catch or fall into this category are the ones that you've already built but haven't sold yet. So that's not an opinion, that's counting. That's been reported in the Daily Telegraph today. The idea that this 100% electric car rule is really, really big, I just don't think it's true. Now, the reason I was joking around a bit at the outset with regard to motoring issues is because it's not an Achilles heel, because I'm quite open about it. I don't know much about cars. I don't particularly enjoy driving when I have to do it. I've ever told you why I learnt to drive? I learnt to drive because Mrs. O'Brien was pregnant and understandably reluctant to drive herself to the hospital in the event of going into labour and her waters breaking. So, to be fair, I had a 9-month window in which to learn to drive, and I found a lovely bloke in Islington called Noel who specialised in intensive driving courses, and he got me over the line in about six weeks flat. Passed first time, never developed an enthusiasm for it, don't particularly enjoy it, will never understand the fetishisation, the emotion. I'm not criticising it anymore. I got that wrong earlier in the week. I get excited about cranes. Show me a lovely crane, I can sit staring at it for 10 minutes. So if you love cars, that's fantastic. But I don't have that gene. I don't have that. I also like bridges. Does anyone else like bridges? There's something about a bridge that speaks to something inside me. I don't know what, but there we are. And for you, it's cars, and that's fine. And I'm not criticising you anymore. It's a bit childish to do that. Criticise enthusiasms you don't understand. It's a bit childish. But it's possible I've missed something. That's why I'm saying this. I'm normally pretty good on detail. It's possible I'm not good on this detail. But if 80% of cars by 2030 are going to have to be electric. New cars. No one's taking your car away. That's another part of the politics that I think is deliberately being used to mislead you. Oddly, by exactly the same people who completely misled you about Brexit. Isn't that odd? Exactly the same people told you Brexit was going to make you better off, or reduce the cost of your food, or improve the quality of the NHS, or even if you're a bit racist, massively reduce immigration. All of those people who told you that, and it's now done the exact opposite, are telling you that this net zero story is a really big deal. It's a very big deal. What if it isn't? What if it isn't? How can it be that big a deal if all that we've seen is a shift of 20% of new cars that would have to be electric in 2030 will instead have to be electric by 2035. Those are the facts. And it's fully electric. So it's not, as I understand it, and again, I think my confusion, rather than being a professional embarrassment, can be used as an illustration of how confused the issue is. But I think the new cars will have to be electric. Not even hybrid or self-charging, because the drive is towards zero emissions, right? And if it's got a bit of petrol, then it's not a zero emission. I've tried to absolutely nail that down, but haven't necessarily fully succeeded. We're pretty confident that's the rule, but it doesn't matter because you won't need to buy a new car until you need to buy a new car. And the market in second-hand cars will remain in place. The deadline for full zero emissions is 2050. So are you listening to this going, really? But surely, James, given the amount of jumping up and down and shouting from the rooftops that the usual suspects have been doing in the client media and the government, I thought this was a really, really big deal. I thought that this was some sort of massive moratorium or a huge break upon change. Why are all these people that told me Brexit was a brilliant idea and routinely tickled Boris Johnson's tummy on a regular basis, why are they all telling me that the net zero pronouncements made by Rishi Sunak this week are a massive, massive deal? Well, you'd have to ask them. So 0345 6060973 is the number that you need. There are two questions here, and they're really linked. I don't think you can answer one without answering the other. The first question is, are you right? Am I right? I mean, is this actually not a very big deal at all? 0345 6060973. And I think it's fair to say that to answer that question, you will need a slightly better grasp of the facts than the average bear, but not an obviously expert grasp. If those numbers are right, and they are, by the way, 80% by 2030, with penalties in place if it doesn't happen. You can even buy credits off other car companies. So if you're not selling enough and another company has sold more, you can buy those credits off those car companies. And if you don't hit the target, you get fined £15,000 per car by the government, right? It's always in the detail. Imagine if people in this line of work had been giving you all the detail about European Union membership before 2016 instead of wanging on about immigrants and bendy bananas. So those are the facts as I understand them, which means it's not a very big deal. Which leads me to my second question, which is, why is Rishi Sunak doing it? Now, you can, of course, call me and tell me from either perspective, either a supporter or a detractor, that this is actually a very big deal, James, in which case you don't need to answer the second question, but you'd be welcome to. But it's taken me 48 hours. I apologise for that, but, nobody's perfect. It's taken me 48 hours to come to what I would call a comfortably informed position on this. It's changed a little bit in the last 24 because of this news or this reassurance given yesterday to the motoring industry that the 80% requirement for new car sales will still be in place in 2030. It leads me to conclude that this is not a very big deal at all.